Hi everyone, my name is Cynthia. Let's talk books. And today I want to talk about how I plan to approach reading French classics in 2019. One thing that I started doing at the end of 2018 was doing a series on my channel where I either do a book review or like a vlog style video on a French classic, and I did actually a few of those at the end of 2018, and it is something that I want to continue doing in 2019 because one, I love French literature, and I teach French history, and I just thought that would be a really cool thing to do on my channel, kind of share that love with everybody. So what I want to share in this video is the books that I already own that would qualify for me to read in 2019, a few other ones that are on my radar to possibly read in 2019, and then kind of go from there. Based on my teaching schedule throughout the year, it's not realistic for me to have like a one book a month, for example, but ideally I would do probably like 10 books in the whole year. So that, I would give myself a little bit of wiggle room so that it's not every month, but it's basically every month that I would be reading one of these classics. The kind of problem with some of that is that some of these books are really big. So I would either not read some of these big ones, or I would just read them over more than 1 month, or possibly like in the summer when I have time to tackle some bigger books and read more. So anyways, let's start talking about some of the books that are contenders for me to read in 2019 and are French classics. So I'm going to start with like undisputed classics of French literature. The first one here is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas, and this is a book that's so interesting. I feel like I know the story. Most people know the story of The Count of Monte Cristo. Do you all remember Wishbone? I'm of the generation that like watched Wishbone, and that is when I think of The Count of Monte Cristo. I don't know why I think of Wishbone, but it's a really neat story, and I like to get to it at some point. So I do have this edition of it. It's a modern library like classics edition, which I really liked. I really like the cover of this. It's a huge book though. It is over 1,400 pages, 1460 it looks like. So it's a big clunker. So probably not one I will start off with. The next book is just as big, and it's The Three Musketeers, also by Alexandre Dumas. And this is a book that I remember I checked this out of my library in middle school like 5 times because I really wanted to read this book, and I just kept like reading the same like 5 pages in the beginning and not being able to get through it. I was in middle school, so of course it was going to be a little bit hard. Alright, well now I'm older and I feel like I can tackle these bigger books a lot easier, hopefully, than I did when I was in middle school. So those are the 2 bigger ones, I feel like, from the books that I have. Another kind of undisputed classic of French literature is Albert Camus's The Stranger, and this one I have in French. So this could be one of the my one book that I read in French this year, so possibly. The next book that I have in my collection is Candide by Voltaire, and this is a classic of Enlightenment thinking. It deals with a lot of topics of religion, science, and kind of outlook on life. So this one is a shorter one, so one I could very easily get to in 29. The next one is Émile Zola's The Lady's Paradise. So this one I've already read, so it would be a reread for me, but it has been years since I read it. Zola is an amazing 19th century writer who wrote a whole series. Like, this one is part of an entire series called the Rougon-Macquart, which follows a family through various generations down different like family lines, where you get to see working class French families, middle class, upper class families, and it's basically Zola's commentary on class economic society in 19th century France. The Lady's Paradise in particular is about the department store and basically the birth of the department store in Paris, what that does for women's roles in society, what that does for economic world of Paris and the world. It's really, really well done. So this is a contender. I also have, there's other Zola books in the series, so if it's not The Lady's Paradise that I read, I like to read more in the Rougon-Macquart series, because Zola is a writer I really, really like from some of these classic ones that I have read. The next book on the list is Jean-Paul Sartre's Nausea. This is a book that one of my students read for my Modern France class, and he really liked it. And it's kind of a critique of certain elements in French society, and the other one of Sartre that I really, really want to read is No Exit. So it's a play, and it's the play where his very famous line, L'enfer c'est les autres, or translated is hell is other people. And I had a student who read that one, and it just reminded me that I really love it. It is one that I read as a French major in college, but one that I would love to get back to and share with all of you. All right, the next one is The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. So this is not the play, this is not the Andrew Lloyd Webber play musical, but the original source material. And I had another student read this book from my Modern France class, and it just, like, seeing this student go through the process of reading and writing about it just reminded me so much of different things that I love about French history and French culture. So The Phantom of the Opera in particular, it's not so much the story that attracts me, but its location. It's set in the Opéra Garnier. So this is a real place in Paris, and the history of it is really, really rich and complex, and like I would love to dig a little bit into it in a video. So anybody that likes history, look forward to this one, because that one I will get to in 2019. Like, I really want to read that one. The next is more of a modern book, and so recently released. So I'm qualifying it as a classic because I want to read it, and it was originally published in French, and it is The Perfect Nanny by Leila Slimani. And this begins with a nanny murdering her charges. Yep. And this is another book that a student read, and it just sounded really intriguing. Now, my student hated this book, absolutely hated it, but I still want to read it and see if I agree with her assessment that it was a bad book. But she hated it because she thought it was boring and not as exciting as she thought it would be. So knowing that, I might have a very different experience with it. So this one's here. The next one is Suite Française by Irène Némirovsky. This is a book that has come up in several videos now because I really need to get to it. It's set in World War II France. When it was first published, it cost like a huge splash because it shows the collaborationist aspect of France during World War II. And so it was very controversial because that's not the way the French like to see themselves. They like to see themselves as a nation of resistance, when in reality it was more about collaboration. And so I really like to read this one. And then the last one that I own in physical copy is A Winter's Promise, which is this a young adult? It might be actually a middle grade. Either way, this is a newer book. It was just translated in English. And a lot of people were comparing it to like Harry Potter, in that it's kind of like kids away at a boarding school and magic is in it. And I really want to read it. That's all I know about it. Really. It is the bigger one, but it looks like it is not a hard one to get through. So I'd really like to read this in 2019. And in fact, I think I'm going to start with Suite Française in either January or February, and then continue with A Winter's Promise, and then we'll see where we go from there. A couple of other ones that I want to mention on here, because there are others that I would be likely to read for the channel, is one, The Silent Boy by Andrew Taylor. This one is set in the French Revolution. I haven't read a lot of works of fiction set in the French Revolution. I did have a student read this one and really enjoyed it, sold it to me. So that's one. I already talked about Zola and the Rougon Macquart, No Exit by Jean-Paul Sartre. Another one that was read by my students was Jules Verne. Jules Verne, I had students who read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Journey to the Center of the Earth. And they managed to historicize these books so beautifully that I would really, really love to get to them. So I'll pick one of these. So I'm not sure. I probably would not read both Journey to the Center of the Earth and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but at least one this year. And then lastly, The Strangled Queen. So this is a fantasy series, historical fantasy series. Like it's set during like the medieval period in France, and it uses real characters, real like the king and the courtiers. A lot of them are real, but completely fictionalizes the story around them. And the student that read it said that it's very comparable to Game of Thrones, or that if you enjoyed Game of Thrones, you would enjoy this series. And The Strangled Queen is the first one. And you know what? I thought normally I would not be that attracted to a series like this, because of the kind of history element of it, and that it's not historically accurate. But I might get to it. I'm at the very least going to look into this book and consider it for reading this year. So yeah, those are all the books now that are on my radar to read as French classics for my series on this channel. So let me know what you think. Have you read any of these? Which ones should I definitely read in 2019? Would you be interested in reading any of these in 2019 as well? Like I said, some of these are well-established classics, and a few are kind of more modern classics that, because this is my challenge, I am classifying as French classics for this purpose. And yeah, I'm actually really excited about this group of books and about getting to them in 2019. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.